After 4.5 years of playing Bed Wars, I've decided to try every mouse I've ever used and rank them all to see which is truly the best. I'll be doing quick reviews of each mouse to go over the weight, shape, price, and how the mouse performs with each clicking technique. And to start, I actually found the mouse that I had when I played Bed Wars for the first time. This is the Microsoft Wheel Mouse Optical 1.1a, and it was the mouse I was using from about 1 to 10 stars or so. I haven't seen this mouse in over 4 years, so let's see how it holds up. It's fully ambidextrous, meaning you can use it with your right or left hand, and as expected, it doesn't glide all that well. It's also decently heavy compared to most of my other mice, and notably, it doesn't have any side buttons. I obviously don't have very high expectations for this thing, so let's start by seeing if it double clicks. What? Yo, that's actually crazy. Okay, let's try a butterfly. Bro, what? What? That's crazy. 24. Look, there's no macros. I doubt this mouse has software. That's awesome. So to my complete shock, this mouse actually double and triple clicks, making it pretty solid for butterfly. I wanted to go for a clutch with it, and even though I thought it could take a while, something crazy happened. Dude, that's my second try. The clicks don't sound the best, and you can actually hear the spring bouncing back and forth in the left mouse button. But who cares about that if an office mouse is producing CPS like this? I decided to test it out with short drag, and it could do it no problem, although the stubby button and sharp decline made long dragging a no-go. You can see me testing it out with bolt clicking and getting around 30 CPS, so I guess these mice came with some great switches. The rounded shape of the buttons made it very easy to double click, so it's actually a pretty great bridging mouse. Any technique that works with short drag was doable, and I quickly got some great clips. I tried it out in some real games and found that it really complemented my playstyle. It was easy to switch from drag to butterfly, and block hitting wasn't an issue either. It did keep tripping me up to not have any side buttons though. I don't have side buttons. I was trying to click my 9. I don't actually have side buttons on this mouse. It's too old. How do I get to my pickaxe? All in all, this is a shockingly good mouse considering when it was made. The mouse is from 2003, bro. It's older than I am. Retailing for around 50 bucks back in the day, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 overall. There's of course better options, and the lack of side buttons is very annoying, but this is a totally usable mouse that allows for some high level gameplay, and I think I'm going to make a separate video trying to play Bed Wars with it. Speaking of which, we are almost at 17k. I still have some hope that YouTube rank is possible, so please do subscribe. It truly means so much. Coming off of such a pleasant surprise, it was time to test my second mouse. Soon after I started playing Bed Wars, I asked if my dad had any RGB mice, and this is what he found lying around. The Rosewill Neon M59. It has an ergonomic shape and a decent glide, but also weighs a little more than my average mouse. The side buttons protrude nicely, but the mouse buttons narrow down towards the end, making it hard to butterfly grip. Either way, let's give it a try. And yeah, it's terrible. No dice on butterfly or drag for this mouse, meaning your best bets for bridging are fruit bridge and maybe single click moonwalk if anybody knows how to do that for some reason. It functioned perfectly fine for single clicking, and I actually enjoyed the ergonomic shape and flat base, but I think the clicks are a little harder than what you would want for jitter clicking. Obtainable for a modest $25 or so, I will be giving my second mouse a 2 out of 10. A few weeks after I started playing Bed Wars, I learned about drag clicking through Cool Dude and Bedless Noob and began looking for a drag click mouse. I ended up settling on the mouse of an OG Godbridge YouTuber named Misdemeanors, and his mouse of choice was the Redragon M711 Cobra. It's a slightly smaller and lighter mouse with rounded buttons. It's also ergonomic and has good side buttons, but the glide isn't optimal. It does butterfly click, but it doesn't register as many CPS as it should, and it's awkward to butterfly thanks to its shape. Annoyingly, the mouse doesn't even drag click that well, only registering any CPS on some attempts. It's the best mouse so far for jitter, but trying to play with it while butterflying presents an interesting problem. Due to the poor click registration, it sometimes just wouldn't pick up the first clicks, leading to a huge delay between when I start clicking and when it actually swings my sword. Butterfly is 100% unplayable, but at least it's better for jitter and normal clicking than the other mice. Taking the prize for cheapest mouse so far, it only costs $20, but that isn't enough to save it from a 3 out of 10 rating. Do note though that one of my friends has this mouse and can butterfly and drag much higher CPS with it, so it's possible I just have a partially defective one. Obviously not satisfied with the M711, I ended up purchasing another mouse that was becoming popular at the time, and it's one I've continued to use ever since, the glorious Model O. I got this mouse over 4 years ago and it's held up great despite being my second favorite Minecraft mouse as well as my main mouse for all non-Minecraft stuff. It's ambidextrous and comfortable to hold, and the base gates make for a very comfortable glide. It's also significantly lighter than the other mice so far, but still weighs enough to feel very controllable. The side buttons are kinda thin, but they stick out enough that they're still easy to hit. The clicks are very satisfying to me, and I'm sure that it's a great mouse for jitter clickers. It definitely works well for normal click too, since it's not unnecessarily large. The buttons are wide and easy to press, and the mouse double clicks fairly easily, making it my #1 favorite mouse for left click butterfly. It also can get insanely high CPS once you've mastered it. You'll often see me use this mouse in modes where only left click is required, like sumo or housing PvP, but I also do use it for Bedwars. The main downside of this mouse is that it's not easy to butterfly on the right button. The buttons slant downwards a bit and the scroll wheel pokes up a lot, which actually blocks my pointer finger from the double click point. It's not that you can't butterfly right click on the Model O, but it takes a lot more focus than butterflying left click. Luckily, the Model O is also great for short drag click, so I just main that instead of butterfly. I personally can't long drag that well on this mouse thanks to the extremely light and slanted button, but one of my friends can do it just fine, so it might just be a skill issue. And while showing that it doesn't long drag well, I hit this clip. Yeah, that's a drop 5. I didn't know it was possible either. I hear a lot of people saying their Model O broke, but I think that comes down to a combination of being unlucky and being too rough with it. It is more fragile than most mice thanks to the honeycomb design, so you have to be careful with how much force you're using. I butterfly and drag on this mouse endlessly and it still works perfectly 4 years later. You can get your hands on one for anywhere from $30 to $50, which is well worth it in my opinion. Overall, the Model O gets a 9 out of 10 for me, only held back by the right click butterfly and lack of long drag potential. I was happy with the Model O, but still wanted a mouse that could long drag so that I could learn block clutches, and I ended up purchasing the Roccat Kane 100 Aimo, and then later the Kain 122 Aimo. You can consider these as the same mouse, with only a few differences in build quality and the like. Commonly cited as the best bridging mouse ever, the Kain is a skinny mouse with very long and defined buttons. It glides decently well and weighs a bit more than the Model O, but I actually think that the weight comes in handy here considering the mouse's specialties. The clicks are awesome and the shape is extremely comfortable. If I was a jitter clicker, this would probably be my main mouse out of all the ones I have. Butterfly seems like it shouldn't work thanks to the skinny buttons, but that's not actually the case. Left click butterfly is difficult in a physical sense, but because the mouse is so goated for double and triple clicking, I still casually butterflied 27 on my second try. I actually find right click easier to butterfly on for the Kain than the Model O since the edge of the button is much further away from the scroll wheel. The side buttons are gigantic and impossible to miss, but this mouse's real specialty is drag clicking. When it comes to drag, the Kain is a beast. The extremely long buttons and ease of clicking make it the GOAT for bridging and amazing at clutching. Short dragging is a breeze, and it was my mouse of choice for God Bridge back in the day. You have to hold it very far back to long drag, but this is where the heaviness ends up helping, since it makes the mouse easier to control despite the receded grip. Back in the day, I was dragging 50 plus on my Kain, so the CPS is nothing to sneer at. Overall, this mouse has so many positives with only one drawback, which is how difficult left click butterfly is. Because I butterfly for PvP, this drawback is extremely annoying for my playstyle, but I also want to note that I have very slender fingers, and people with wider fingers might not be able to butterfly on the Kain at all. Being discontinued means you need to fork over at least $100 to pick up one of these, but I still give it an 8.5 out of 10, my third favorite mouse ever. Next we have the bloody A90, a mouse that received glowing reviews from Cool Dude and Tricks, which prompted me to buy one. My expectations for this mouse were extremely high, but when I got mine I remember really hating it and never using it. Upon testing it again for this video, I must have just been terrible back then because this is an okay mouse. It's the heaviest of all the mice I've talked about so far, and by a pretty significant margin. The side buttons don't stick out at all, making them extremely hard to press, which is made even harder by the heavily curved ergonomic shape. The clicks are tough and don't feel satisfying, which renders it a poor mouse for jitter or normal clickers. The glide is the worst of all of my mice. It sounds like it's scratching the mouse pad as I go back and forth, and the shape leads to a weird issue. When moving the mouse towards me, it feels like it's going to tip over onto my thumb, and the inside edge keeps catching the mouse pad. As for butterfly clicking, this mouse has a serious discrepancy. The left side butterfly is awful. The tall shape makes it hard to butterfly while aiming, and the button hits the edge on the left when you press it down, reducing double clicks. I struggled to get even 20 CPS on the left button, but the right button was awesome for it. I immediately noticed a huge difference, casually getting 27 CPS on right click. Listen to how differently butterflying sounds on right click and left click. Right click is clearly getting way more double and triple clicks than left click is. It's also a decent mouse for drag clicking, with solid short drags and decent enough long ones. However, the glide was becoming an issue. Almost every clutch or bridge clip in this video took anywhere from 5 seconds to 2 minutes for me to hit, but I spent 8 to 9 minutes going for clutches with the A90 and wasn't able to hit a single one with butterfly or long drag. To sum it all up, this mouse was disappointing on most metrics, but boasted a solid ability to drag click and an excellent shape for right click butterfly. The strengths are nice, but the downsides just hold it back too much to justify the $60 price tag, resulting in a 5 out of 10 overall rating. After the A90, Bedless Noob came out with his bloody collaboration, the original bloody aBedless. The aBedless is a retextured A70, and the A70 is often thought of as the best drag clicking mouse ever. It goes without saying that this mouse was literally made for Minecraft, so I decided to get in on the action. The aBedless is a giant mouse, and it weighs the most out of any mouse I own, including the A90. It has a controversial shape that has divided users, specifically the crease in the middle of the mouse, but I literally never notice it at all. The buttons are very long and pretty wide, and the scroll wheel barely pokes up above the edges, staying perfectly out of the way. The side buttons are great and are placed in a natural position, and the mouse glides pretty nicely for its weight. Up to this point, it seems to be on the good side of average, but that's all about to change. The clicks are pretty hard, which makes it unattractive for normal or jitter clicking, but when it comes to butterfly and drag, this mouse is the greatest around. Left click isn't the easiest to butterfly on since you have to reach your hand forward, but those who can manage will be rewarded with very high CPS. Right click butterfly is amazing, and the reason I use this mouse over the Model O. The scroll wheel being so low down makes it easy to reach over the middle, and the double click points are easy to find. This results in me being able to hold 25 CPS butterfly like it's nothing, and even peak into the mythical 30 CPS realm. The heavy clicks and rounded outside edge of the button make short dragging easier and better than on every other mouse. It's also the undisputed GOAT of long dragging. After messing around with so many different mice, being back on the aBedless felt like a cheat code, and I instantly hit 2 insane clutches back to back. This is my main mouse and the one that I'm using in almost every single video on my channel. Any insane play you see me do is probably done with this mouse. It's a heavy beast with a shape some people don't like, but those who can conquer it are rewarded with the ultimate clicks per second. As someone whose playstyle is a mix of butterfly and drag click, this is the perfect mouse for me, and I've actually never been bothered by the shape or weight. I do want to mention though that I have large hands and long fingers. People with smaller hands or shorter fingers might not find this mouse usable, as it's quite a reach to the end of the button and a lot of weight to move around. While the original aBedless is out of production, the near identical aBedless 2 is available for $50, and I can safely give my favorite mouse of all time a 9.5 out of 10. It loses half a point because the left click butterfly isn't as nice as it is on other mice like the Model O, and it isn't usable for everyone, but I personally have no complaints about this mouse. Next up is the aforementioned aBedless 2. I got this when it came out because I love the original aBedless and I wanted to have a backup in case mine broke. With how good the aBedless was, I was so excited to try the improved version out, and it was defective. It didn't work. Didn't drag, didn't butterfly, didn't even double click. I sent that one back and ended up getting another one 2 years later once the defective batch should have been gone. And yeah, this one is defective too. And it was actually a gift that I couldn't really return, so here it is. Lol. I want to say that I have friends who have non-defective versions of this mouse, and theirs work just as well as my original aBedless. They both love the mouse and main it for Bedwars. I just got unlucky, but because I got 2 defective ones in a row, I give this mouse a 0 out of 10. But I'd probably also give it a 9.5 if it worked. Last up is the most recent mouse I bought, the Kone Pro. It had been a long time since I'd bought any mice, so in the summer of 2023, I thought I'd cop one of these since they were hot at the time. And yes, I haven't bought a single mouse in the year and a half since. The Kone Pro has one of the nicer ergonomic shapes of the mice I own, and it has a passable base glide. It weighs less than half of what the aBedless does, and the side buttons stick out nicely, albeit a little high up. It's pretty comfy to hold, and the clicks are okay, so I think it'd be a solid choice for jitter or normal clickers, but in terms of butterfly and drag, it doesn't really measure up. The buttons are rounded and slanted, making it deceivingly hard to butterfly on. They're pointed so far down that on the left button, the cable gets in the way of one of the butterfly points and the other is too close to be hit at the same time, leading to significantly less CPS than my other mice. The right button suffers from the same problem as the Model O, where it's hard to avoid the scroll wheel and get down over the button to butterfly. As for drag, it short drags pretty well, although not as well as my 3 favorites. Long drag is good with the potential for pretty high CPS, but the mouse is so light that it becomes a little bit of a problem. Sometimes when long dragging with too much force, I can actually vibrate my aim while moving the mouse down to clutch, although all this really does is make the clip look stupid. It is a problem though that the mouse flicks so far when using the long drag grip, but this is probably just because I'm used to such a heavy mouse, so I move it with too much force. For people who like light mice, this would probably be awesome for something like boxing and make flicks and 360s a lot easier. Available for a modest $25 or so, I give the Kone Pro a 7.5 out of 10. It's not the best for butterfly, but it's good enough at drag for someone to get into bridging or clutching, and it's probably a great mouse for jitter clickers and people who like light mice. Plus, it's not that expensive. And those are all my mice. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you watched to the end, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe. I'm still trying to push for YouTube rank, and I would absolutely love to have you on board with me. I haven't gotten a new mouse in a long time, so let me know if there's any mice I should review, and thank you all so much for the support lately. I'll hope to see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.